it's everything to me right now, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Now is the moment I will never moonlight. Don't need to.
I love that. I think this is the highlight of our conversation. It's a lovely, no, I'm going to start again. They couldn't even come with a better name.
Which school did you study in?
Cluny Convent.
So, which school?
Cluny Convent. That is where हमारा हिंदी बहुत ही निपुण है started.
Oh yeah.
Entomology.
Ethology.
I will never get this right. Will you edit this?
No.
I've also been called 11 steps planning for everything.
Who called you that?
I've been a big fan of yours I think from when you started.
Really, I was terrible. You can't be my fan.
I'll throw a question back at you, Sajid.
Yo.
He had such a thick Malayali accent that even the Malayalis didn't know what he was talking about.
ये थोड़ा और बेहतर हो सकता था. You know it yourself.
Better is what?
I shouldn't venture into controversial areas.
No, get it.
No.
They call me Gawar. I'd like to come back to this podcast when we made it. Because I'm coming from a rural background, only thing I know, I can hold a pencil.
That was hard. Again, I've cried like a baby after my first divorce.
In between, Met Gala happened, Cannes happened, and this is where I am. I felt that there was too much noise, I call it, in the world. There was a lot of noise,
I'm not trying to fit into your world. I'm trying to create a world of my own.
So how would you define who am I? So Kanishka, welcome to Attitude Makeover. I think you were supposed to be my episode 3 guest, but today is episode 50. What a milestone, and I'm glad you're doing it at 50.
My God, thank you. No, really, thank you for having me. And 50 is a crazy number.
Yes.
So congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you. So I think what I wanted to do, I've always been admiring your journey. I think when you were thinking of starting is when we met.
Yeah.
And you were talking, you just started blogging with the 10th Muse. And
That's
for
right.
me, more than the food, first it was the blogs, the play of words, the lived experiences that you're bringing with your words, and then of course the food. And I realized right there that something that you're driving is the magical world of bringing your lived experiences with food and the travel all together as a conversation or a storytelling process. And I was like really hooked on post that throughout, and this is an honor to really have you in my podcast.
Gosh, thank you. My goodness, I don't even know what to say. Thank you. Kind words, absolute kind words. It's and also blogging is such a strange thing. It's not even, I didn't even see it as blogging, it was just writing. But also you don't see your audience or anything, right? So to put a face to so many names, and then especially you've always said to me that you liked something you read, and which is always nice. So thank you.
Yeah. I always start my conversation with really getting to know the early years of my guest. I know you personally, but can you just reflect back on your early years, on what was early years like? You're a vegetarian. You were born in a vegetarian household, but
That's
I think
true.
some of the best foods you make is the meat.
Yeah, but that's also, anyway, I don't know, early years, I mean, considering the relic that I almost am, I don't know how early you want me to go, but I was born to a vegetarian family, but it didn't stop my parents from giving me an experience of non-veg food. Vegetarian family because of, religion and birth and so on and where we're from, but my mother actually didn't know how to cook non-veg.
Okay.
For that reason, because she's also from such a family and none of them ever cook non-veg. So, but for her, she always tried to eat for herself. My earliest memory of eating non-veg in our house is that my dad would go and bring some roast chicken from somewhere, and it was like a Sunday treat. Another memory is we used to have Iranian neighbors in our house, and they knew how to cook, and they became very close friends with my parents. And so I've come back one day from school, I think, and one of them was saying, I'm making chicken pulao or whatever it was. I don't remember the details, but there was chicken, and he was butchering the chicken in our house. In the sense, he was breaking it up. He had brought a whole chicken and he was cutting it. My mother's fainted in the kitchen. She couldn't, it was her first. My God, someone's cutting the chicken. So from there to now I guess life has changed, but I never wanted to not experience different food. And so I made myself eat everything. I still do eat everything. I only say that I like or don't like something once I've tried it, for sure, food-wise. Food, and when I say food, I usually mean food and beverage. So that whole entirety of what that is.
But you didn't start off your career journey with food. You started off with the corporate world, or where was it?
No, I started, life's been all over the place a little bit, but I started as a writer. My training is in writing, actually, my first training. So I started as a writer. I used to write for magazines and websites. In those days, website was new.
Yeah.
So things like that, and then that progressed to more writing in sort of a more corporate environment, and so entering the corporate world that way. But I always worked in food, moonlighted in food, looked for weekend kitchens that I could go to. Even during college, my 2-3 jobs that I had was always in kitchens. So always kept in touch with food.
Okay. So did you at some point, how did the shift happen? Did it just happen?
I've always been interested in food. Cooking sort of came along the way because we tend to want to feed ourselves and you learn a little bit. But I always helped my mom quite a bit in her kitchen. It was always a thing, and we all ate together usually. My folks made sure we ate, all of us together. So that apart, cooking itself was always around me. And I always wanted to cook. But there was never a moment to say, let me go to a school to be trained, because I think we're also from a generation where that was never easy access. It was always about security first. And then life also happens, and then you figure it out and you say, okay, maybe later. It gets pushed out a little bit. Then you start making some money and you go, oof, how to stop making that money now?
Becomes an addiction, right? Money becomes the addiction.
Taking that leap into a non-money making environment, you're too young, there's too many things going on. But it was always there at the back of my mind. But I also did a lot of food things on the other side of food. And when I say other side of food, it's the farming, the food that gets made in factories.
Okay.
Because whether we like it or not, that's what feeds the world. It's all nice to say from our liberal armchairs, farm to fork, and we'll go to restaurants where everything is grown organically and humanely, killed animals and all, but that's, for a few. The masses get fed from factories. There are things that go in cans, there are things that go in bottles. The preserving of food for long term was very interesting to me, because the man who eventually became my husband was in that work also.
Okay.
And we met because of that. And so I did that for almost 15 years.
I'm actually very interested in that parallel life you were living then, right? Because you're earning money from the corporate world. These days there's this whole thing of moonlighting and how the corporate world looks at it. But then I think as an individual, it's very important. I personally feel it's very important to sort of have this moonlighting or the side hustles.
Yeah.
Because it adds to your character of who you are.
Of course. Yeah, you're right. And if you can't pursue an interest in that way, then find another way. But the word moonlight, unfortunately, has got a bad connotation. It doesn't need to. I mean, there was always I guess corporates still have the contract of non-compete. How is this a compete? It's on my time. We'll make it to work on time also, one way or the other. But I always saw it as a different thing to do, as a way to find an outlet. I enjoyed bars, both the drinking aspect and the behind the bar scene. Of course, at that age, we all enjoyed the drinking aspect, but also enjoyed the mixology that slowly came into Bangalore. The bars in Bangalore were always well known.
Yeah.
So discovered some things about mixology and how that works, and then the building up of taste and how taste evolves, not just in terms of how you can train your palate to distinguish between flavors, but also the understanding that taste is also not just in your mouth. It's also an experience of a room, the way a room is set up, a space, a house, a hotel, whatever it is. It's an aesthetic. It's an understanding of the aesthetics of life. So that, I was always interested in reading, and I've been a voracious, nerdy, like almost reader forever. I have a massive bookshelf in my house, and I keep adding to it. But to me, reading was always an understanding of the rest of the world's aesthetic. What does that mean to have a taste for something? And without judgment, whether it was a taste for, I don't know, frog's legs, that was someone's complete joy, and my mouth is watering talking about it, or idli and podi, there was such a stark difference in the things I read about and the things I tasted, that the understanding and the development of taste became important to me.
So how did this shift, I'm still trying to see, here's the thing, right? When you get used to money coming every month and there's work there versus a space like this, which is a passion economy where there isn't a lot of money, at least back then when you were starting, there wasn't much money there.
No.
So
there still isn't, I'm just saying.
Thank you. That sounds very motivating for me here, sitting across the table. But I think that plunge then is either like something happened. For me, some adversity or something changed in life that you took the plunge, saying, I'm willing to take the full plunge.
I think as the years go by also we mature into it, and also sort of tunnel into something, and then you drop off the things that don't matter so much to you. Also, what is really important emerges. I've always believed that things will emerge out of this mist that generally life is, and then you will pick some things that work and some things won't, and then they'll go off back into the mist, So like that, as I got older and this development of taste improved for me, traveled more and more, cooked more and more, generally had more of an experience of life, I realized what became more important to me. And yes, there was a turning point. I got closer to 40 and I realized that I am closer to 40, my God. I'm now or never. So what is really important to me? The turning point was not necessarily age. There was a few things. Adversity has been there through my life in one way or the other, and therefore choices were made accordingly. So to continue making money was always there. I had a lot of obligations, a lot of people I needed to take care of. So therefore, always me and my dream second. And I guess that point came when me has to be first.
I still remember when you were starting, we had this conversation. And I think I especially asked you, how was taking that plunge? Because, no one talks to you about that. Because when I took the plunge, I'd done all this. I did this whole thing, business model. Okay, the podcasting world is this, creative space is this is how the economy. You won't get money in the beginning, figure out and how much time you'll go through this and what's the worst case. But at some time when you take the plunge, reality hits you like one bullet train.
Yeah.
How was that?
Does. It was wild and crazy, but most of my life, aside from the corporate gigs I've done, has been entrepreneurial. So putting myself in the risk corner has been pretty much all the time. But all those times were other people's money, not my own. Not my own risk also in terms of reputation.
Yes.
Or credibility, Although I was representing another firm or a firm with investors, it still didn't have the full impact. Like you're saying, it was full, 100% in my face. First month's rent came and I was like, ooh, that's just... It's only depleting what I've managed to build up. It's not building.
Yes.
Yeah, it hit me quite badly. And I thought about it that first 3 months already, I was thinking, forget the 3 years. I think I'm there already. Right? But once again, somehow you wake up the next day and you go, of course not. I've not even gone to a tenth of what I wanted to be able to make that choice. So never, of course not. And my personality doesn't allow me to give up very easily. So no, I carried on, and we're here now. I think I was trying to count yesterday because I knew I had to be ready today. And you might ask me, I think we're going on 7 or 8 years since I actually began. But there's a sort of an overlap of the actual moment. So it's about seven years, I'd say.
So are there... So for me, one of the things I noticed is I come with a lot of grit. I don't give up that easily. Very ambitious, but the ambition is not towards my definition of success itself. It's very different. But it goes back to my early years, the upbringing, what I've seen in life. And I see that as you're speaking, there's a lot of reference to the nerdy side, and I can relate with that. Books have always been a companion for me. Travel. Getting your hands dirty, even though you have a full-time job, this is a passion and you make time, you get your hands dirty. And there's a lot of grit and resilience as you started to say, hey, it is hard, but let me go back. Do these go back to your early years of how you've been brought up?
Most definitely. I saw my father run a business that had many ups and downs. So, some learnings from there. I've seen family go through it. I've seen friends go through it. So learning from there also. But in general, I think resilience is there somehow. And this inability to give up easily. Just, it feels like defeat. Until I've seen something through to some sort of logical end. And whether success or failure doesn't matter, but a logical end. And so those steps have to be followed. I'm also extremely OCD on the one side, but can also be ridiculously the opposite. So there's a lot of contradiction that I have in me, that every day there's a devil on this shoulder, there's an angel on this side also, and we're all fighting together every day. They both wake me up in the morning to say, no, you've got to get out there, but they both fight with me also during the day. How much should we do? When should we stop? When do we keep going? This is a constant with me. And I've come to realize that I don't want that to stop.
So the question I had was, when you started, there was a persona that you had, even before you started at that time, the 10th Muse.
It's still the 10th Muse, but it's a part of the persona.
Right? Has that persona changed today from when you started? Because there are two parts to an individual, right? There's a character and then there's a personality. Now, personality is what we project to the outer world, but the character is very deep inside. To your point, your left and your right. Just the devil and the angel sort of thing. Has that changed? Has your character changed? Has your personality changed?
I had to make the character because I'm very private like that. Contrary to public opinion, my friends, family will say that I'm not, but in many ways, I absolutely am. So I was never a social media person. Also, I didn't know what to say, and it was also always too instant gratification for me. I would rather spend a lot of time with you, for example, like this, than have that instant look at somebody's life, But I realized when I began cooking for a living that people needed to see what I do. Otherwise, how do I do what I do? So I created the character, but the character is based entirely on my personality. The 10th Muse is a muse that presides over the pleasures of taste. And that's exactly who I am. It isn't restricted to being a chef, because that's not all there is to it. There is so much more. Again, also life and work takes over and there's no time for me to. I'm not the quick sort of 3-line writer. I have to think about it. Because I want to say something that I mean as well. So that's how I think that journey started. I enjoyed it because I was cooking at the same time, and somehow people like yourself started to follow me. And I say somehow because I have really no idea how this thing happened. I never thought I'd find a following, because what I have to say is quite unique and not so interesting also. I'm not a splash maker in that way, but here we are.
One thing that stood out for me through your early years, I think I came for the early supper club.
You've been to quite a few of the early ones, I think. Yeah.
Your liver party is to die for. You make the best in the world.
Thank you.
What I noticed was there was an experimentation. The food was like your playground.
Yeah.
It was like your canvas.
Yeah.
But it's not just that. To your point, everything from the storytelling that happens to the experience, the kind of people that come and the conversations that happen, it's an indulgence, and you go back with a memory. You just don't go back with, that was great food.
Yeah.
You go back with a memory.
Yeah, memory of an experience, I
Exactly.
hope. Yeah. Which was always the point. Yes, that was it. That was always it. I started Supper Club because I wanted to have a creative outlet to be able to cook with abandon. Complete abandon. So if you recall, in the early days, there'd be menus that I'd say, no, I'm sorry, there are no options. There's either only non-veg or only veg, or when there's a combination, people will have to eat both. So it's been a chef's table. You'd have to surrender to me when you came to Supper Club, right? That was the idea. And surrender to the experience. And no reveal of the menu in advance. I think even reveal of the address only the day before.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do that because I wanted people to say, whatever, I'm in for it.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to what was going on at the time of, I want to see your menu, I want to be able to check it out, I want to see what other people say about it, I want to know how many stars you've got, and then only decide that I will come and eat with you. And that starts to grate at me, because I'm saying then, where do you get an experience? You've already pre-judged and pre-selected everything. Including, I'm going to eat exactly that when I go there, having missed everything else on the menu, right? So it was a creative outlet for me because I was cooking catering at the time, very purely catering. And catering means you have to live up to a client's requirement, which is absolutely not an issue, but it becomes quite rigid. So I started it, and again, something I started, I didn't imagine would become popular. I said, let's see, maybe once I'll do it, and then maybe 6 weeks or 2 months later I'll do, but it became a monthly thing. Because people would say, our common friends, the other friends that I have, say, when are you doing the next one? It was great fun, let's do it again. And the common table, the communal table, meeting new people at it, it slowly evolved into something where single people would come. It didn't matter that they didn't know anybody else. Then I realized, why not make it a space for other chefs also? Because there must be cooks out there that also want a creative outlet. And so opened it up to others, and I've had quite a few. And that's how I met my current business partner, Pallavi. She came to cook at Supper Club. And as the story goes, she never left.
So I'm curious there, when you took the plunge, it's not like you ran a restaurant, you cooked at home for friends, you entertained friends with the food and the beverages and the mixers that you made. But this is a larger deal.
Yeah.
Did you have some mentors or role models that you connected with to even say, okay, because you disrupted that space in some ways, right? Because the normal notional thing of food in restaurant is you go to some very fancy place or a ordinary place or a fast food place, you experience the whole thing. It's just part of the whole trip. But here, this is the holistic experience. So how did that come into? Were there influences to it with the people you knew, the mentors or people you knew?
So catering was going on, and I was catering from home because I didn't have a commercial kitchen. Catering by word of mouth sort of spread, which is an easy one to do actually, because I would do small groups, up to 25 I could manage. I was cooking on my own. I would have interns drop in once in a while. Could also hire daily help when needed. So catering kind of managed, but I wanted to stick to that for as long as I could to establish credibility also, like you're saying, came from a non-food background in that way. So how to establish credibility? No other way to do it but from food and from cooking it over and over and over again, hundreds of times. And then making sure the word of mouth was the way that it went first, not that advertising, I've said, will always come later.
Yeah.
Then the Supper Club, so it was sort of a build-up of a different type of credibility, because in a way, running a Supper Club is like running a restaurant, It's you still have to think about your guests
Yeah.
and their experience of your space, whether it's 10 people or 100, it's the same thing. How do they enter your space? Who will feed them? Do we have a server in mind, or will I do it myself? Or, how is their experience of it? Is there a clean bathroom? These things are part and parcel of running a restaurant, really. And through this, mentors, not direct mentors, but I've always looked up to chefs across the world who have done it, having again experienced those places and experiences, gone to restaurants that are intensely focused on the customer side of it, gone to restaurants who are the opposite also, who are intensely focused on the chef and the surrendering to the chef that I've said, just succumbing to that whole thing. So I think it was a gathering of all these things. There were people locally in Bangalore that I looked up to, went to restaurants. I remember going to Red Fork, for example, for breakfast a lot, and Chef Xerxes was always someone I thought would do incredibly well, and it's Bangalore's loss that he's not here anymore. Chef Himanshu, who ran Grasshopper first and then Forage. But my God, if there's a self-taught chef, there's one there.
Yeah.
And I had to look toward those people as well, right?
Yeah.
The ones who were self-taught like myself. Then there's always, of course, Chef Manu Chandra, who is an inspiration to so many, and how he started. A lot of women chefs in the same way. Not locally, sadly, but that's, I think we could talk for another hour on just how women chefs are so not in the forefront. And also for me to say woman, male chef is not right, just chef in general. Then I met Pallavi, who's really the opposite of all those things, who's incredibly on the forefront of food. So yeah, people like this, young, old, curators of even things like art shows, to me was part of this experience.
Interesting.
Because I always collaborated for Supper Club with people who are non-food also. I had designers, I've used furniture from Phantom Hands, Deepak.
Yeah.
I've used the services of Purple Turtle to do our table. And I think from there also gave them the idea to keep doing it later, because this is all part of the experience. And I always wanted to be involved with people who did creative things. Cheesemakers that are local, people who cure meat that are local. Always, never to reinvent the wheel, but use what's there and collaborate in that way.
So you mentioned about, I did have this question for you. Most chefs are male, but yet at home, most of the chefs at home are women. How is it being a woman in that space?
It's tough, it's not easy. Woman chef, woman entrepreneur, both, and both together. Wow, it's a little disconcerting for a lot of people. But until people pointed it out to me, I didn't even see it, because I don't look at life like that. I was brought up in a way that I'm meant to look at men and women as equal. So it didn't even occur to me until someone had to point it out. Like the same way, the first time I ever went abroad, I think it reminded me that I'm of a different color, but I don't see it. I don't see it on a regular basis. I don't even think about it. Like that, I don't think about being a woman, entrepreneur, chef as something that I should really be on the top of every day. It's just like that, take it or leave it. We're all fighting for the same thing here.
Yeah.
Some sort of passion, some sort of life to live, right? And how does it matter at the end of the day who we are? But it's become important to think about it. It's become very important. And I think setting up a system where there's a role model for women who are younger and behind us is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because the world really does suffer from this particular problem. And how to set that up for the future is something I think about. So some sort of legacy maybe, considering I don't have children and I don't think I will. I think a legacy like that is important to set up. And so recently I've started to think about it more and more, because NAVU's made a huge impact in that space. And I'm so very proud of us for having done that. That can't stop now.
Yeah.
Really need to further that. So we consciously hire women. obviously best person for the job.
Yeah.
But hoping, fingers crossed always it'll be a girl or a young woman or whomever. But yeah, trying to establish an environment where that is safe for women to do, and hoping that legacy will carry on.
Yeah. No, I've seen some of your, they're very young, they're full of these dewy eyes and experimentation and creative, and they actually enjoy working with you. But I'm thinking inside the kitchen you are like the Hell's Kitchen sort of person.
No, actually, that's not actually true. But a kitchen is a very vibrant, high-speed environment. And at the end of the day, we're there to do a job and we're there to do it very, very well. And nothing less will actually be okay for us. So, yes, it's not easy working for Pallavi and I. It's not easy working at NAVU. But the guarantee is that you will be there and enjoy the hell out of it. Because it's also not personal,
Yeah.
We're trying to groom ourselves to be able to deliver the best possible experience and product out there. And that doesn't come easy. It doesn't come without heartache. It doesn't come without blood, sweat, tears, all those things. So it happens, but none of it is personal. It's all for personal growth, but it's not personal. And Hell's Kitchen was too much. It's not, no, we're not. We're absolutely not that bad. No, I'm not.
But are kitchens that way? Have you seen kitchens that way?
Yes, I've worked in them also. I've experienced them.
Really?
And become a better cook and chef for it. So in some ways, we talk about how to find that balance, Give our own staff an experience of where you have to be really, really, really good to work in our kitchen. And how do you get to that point? But it's a tough one nowadays.
Yeah.
And the world has become not so accepting of kitchens that are bad workplaces. And we never want to have one. We are very keen that our kitchen become the ideal kitchen workspace where really our staff are taken care of and therefore blossom. So hopefully, fingers are still crossed.
No, I think it should be fun working with you. I don't know. I personally find you good fun to hang out with. So I'm thinking even in the kitchen you must be fun.
It's fun, but it's also hard work, That's what we expect. We expect only the best.
Yeah.
And therefore there are hurdles.
Yeah.
Otherwise...
Because it's also about I'm coming there for you.
Yeah.
It's like I'm trusting you and coming wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And so the onus is even more to be perfect as much as possible.
Precisely.
Right?
When we have brought our audience to the trough saying you have to trust us in this experience, we're saying succumb, and now you've done it. Clearly the expectation is way high, right?
Yeah,
so we are very conscious of that.
Yeah.
And we demand the best, not just from ourselves, but from our team as well. And that's why every day to wake up and say we're only as good as our last meal is sort of the mantra on the wall.
Yeah. So how did the partnership, one of the struggles I've had, and you and I have talked about this very early on, I think we can do it solo, but it's more beautiful when you have a partner as well, right?
Completely. Yeah. There's a burden to share,
Yes.
It becomes, it's really something that gives that further push also.
Yes.
Otherwise, I think you can stagnate.
Yeah.
Being in your own mind, you can stagnate.
Yes.
And that's what's the worst part of doing a business solo. And especially a chef entrepreneur like Pallavi and I are, solo would be very difficult. Well, there's so many aspects to it. That whole 70% that's non-cooking, my God, solo would be impossible, right?
Yes.
So the partnership happened, like I said, because Pallavi cooked at Supper Club, and then we became really good friends and realized that our cooking styles are similar. Her background in being so heavily trained in cooking, kitchen, hotel management, and my non-trained background really come together incredibly well. And we feed off each other in that way. Her travel experience, her reading, her family, all this are so opposite in a way of mine, but also the same.
Yeah.
Hard to explain, but it came together so nicely, and I can't be more thankful because NAVU wouldn't have happened, and therefore the restaurant, and therefore everything we do now. So I'm also, it's a progression.
Yeah.
I think the universe sort of aligns itself in a way for that to happen. And I've kept myself open to it. For sure, somewhere in Pallavi's life, she's kept herself open to it.
True.
And so the paths meet. And we're having the time of our lives, really. it's hard work, and I can't stop saying it enough. Not that we don't have our bad days together. We do, because we're tired, and then again, it's only the two of us. Solo is difficult means two is also difficult. Yes. It's incredibly hard some days because we have to do everything. It is only the two of us. And we continue to be only the two of us, and we will only be. We get help when we need it, but we don't like it too much also. We like to do things on our own. It's this thing of having control over every aspect, from the first to the last.
Yeah.
Until that food hits your table and until you've left satisfied, we won't be satisfied. And so I think I found the best person in that journey. Where this journey will take us, we have to see. But for the moment, we're here and we're thoroughly enjoying ourselves.
Did you hit adversity after you started? Because I think it's never a rosy, the highway is all smooth. I'm running at 60 miles per hour or maybe 120 miles per hour. As an entrepreneur, it's like an up and down.
There are always, there's always, entrepreneurship comes with as many road bumps as you can imagine, right? You know this. Yes, adversity in all sorts of forms, I'm at usually 200 kilometers an hour. I'm already 10 years in the future. But I have to hold myself back. Pallavi and I both have to now, because this is where we are. We don't have enough money. We're bootstrapped this whole thing. That's always a problem. When we want to do something, there's no money to do it. Right? Or the market is not ready for it. Or we feel like, no, not now. Then when? And then when that when comes, again back to square one. Back to holding on to ideal or letting go of some of it and saying, okay, let's allow ourselves to chisel away at this thing slowly. Each one is an adversity. Each moment like that is a problem. We have done pop-ups now pretty much all over Bangalore, but also recently in Bombay. Everything is a learning. We realize, okay, what do we have to do? We have to come back correct, readjust the course. All of those moments are adversity. They may not be massive ones. We've, in a way, managed to hold ourselves to a lower expectation of the business while our own for the business is quite high. Yeah. COVID was a massive adversity. Right? It's not easy to even pinpoint that adversity. It's just something that's out there. You can't fight it. You can't find a way around it. You can't get a bank loan for it. You can't, what do you do? It just shut us down overnight. And thinking through that for the 2 months of the first lockdown that it was damn hard, because now we have an invisible one. True. And so do we continue or do we stop, find a job? How do you find a job in COVID? That was even worse. People are losing jobs, quitting, going away. So that was difficult, but realized we don't know anything else to do. So through COVID, we started to do takeaways also.
How did that happen? It's like you evaluated, okay, do I go back?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say all this in some public sphere like this, but obviously there was some jugaad, there's somebody saying I got a pass for transport during COVID. Then we all gather in one place and somehow send people some food. Some 10 packets is what we started with. We got shut down, first lockdown, I think on the day we were going to have a supper club. So we had a fridge full of food.
Wow.
And it was overnight. So what do we do with this food? We turned it into takeaway, but didn't know how to deliver this thing because there was no system. Somehow managed to deliver between going ourselves and finding a dunzo, one guy to go and give everything. Somehow managed not to waste the food also. And then did a couple more in that time. Then when the lockdown lifted, started again slowly. By which time it was November, we did quite a few pop-ups. Catering became a huge thing because the people didn't want to leave home.
Yeah.
So we catered a lot at that time. A lot of takeaway, a lot of catering at home. Even for just regular food, it didn't have to be an occasion because people have created bubbles. My God, it feels like so long ago now. It was only 2 years. But still. And then December of 2020, was it 2019? No, when was the first lockdown? 2020.
March 2020.
Yeah. So November 2020, we got invited to BIC to do a pop-up there, a couple of them. We did that, and in January they had asked us to take over the kitchen because their kitchen was empty, and then NAVU suddenly had a restaurant. And it took barely 30 seconds to make the decision and 2 weeks to move in.
Was that like, did you have the finances? Because you're just coming out of COVID, right? Or you're still in COVID.
Yeah, still in the middle of it. Didn't have anything.
You took the plunge.
There was no other way, you know. We realized we needed a kitchen to work out of, to expand those operations a little bit. We realized also that the space was there for the taking, so why not? And the kitchen came fitted in some ways. We had a lot of stuff. So between that and, like I've said, we've bootstrapped this whole thing. So we just put money together and said, okay, let's start with what there is, because COVID is still lurking, you know. It was not just lurking but looming.
Yeah.
And no one knew, is it gone, is it
How
not?
long?
And sure enough, there was another lockdown. But by then we had started the restaurant, so we sort of knew what we were doing. But a second time really was quite a beating. By then, the world had figured out that restaurants can get a pass for takeaway, but there was some fine print in the way BIC is set up that they said the restaurant cannot run.
Oh.
So we were the only ones, I think, in Bangalore who weren't allowed to work, aside from a few others. But we weren't allowed to do takeaway from there. So again, you know, it was like starting from zero. But it's the only thing we know how to do, so had to carry on.
Such a fighter. I think at this point, I'm going to ask you, having gone through this journey, what does now mean to you? Is it like your child? Is it
It completely is. You know, people say, oh, are you doing a NAVU event or is it your own? And I'm saying, what's the difference? It's the same thing. NAVU is me, I am NAVU. It's an extension of me. And therefore, yes, my baby. Our baby, Pallavi's also, because NAVU, in its essence of its meaning, is us. And if that's not an extension of who we are, then what else is? So yeah, it's everything to me right now. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Now is the moment I will never moonlight. You know, don't need to.
I love that. I think this is the highlight of our conversation, because that's the whole idea of doing a side hustle, following your passion to a point where you love it so much that, sorry, I don't want to come back there.
No, there's no reason anymore.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to say, oh, I'm doing my event when I'm not doing a NAVU event. It's all the same.
I found it, and I think most entrepreneurs would agree with you and me here, it's a very personal discovery, self-discovery journey also in some ways, because you suddenly see, oh, there's an inner strength over here. Oh, I'm not so worried about this.
Yeah.
Right? Something that you were always sitting outside there thinking about, it's too hard.
Yeah.
As you take the plunge, you seem to be motivating yourself in different...
You seem to be... Yes, absolutely. Completely. You're so right. And you arrive at that personal point and you say, you know, and speaking of adversity, it's not just barriers, you know. You also, through this journey, you also disappoint people. You also leave some people behind, not intentionally ever. But it happens because you have to make some really hard choices sometimes. And in that process, I know I have, but at that moment, there's nothing I can do about it, you know. I know I'll go back to it and make up for it, especially some close friends and family. And family gets the brunt of it, you know, because you leave them behind and you say they'll take anything from me. And I know I've put my family through a hell of a lot. And that's something that in my own personal journey that we're talking about, I've come to terms with, that I've done that and it's not a good thing. But I know I don't do it with any intent. It's part of this journey. I cannot make 100% of people happy 100% of the time, which is also the restaurant business. 100 people will eat in your restaurant and 10 will be terribly disappointed. That's life. We'll make up for it. When you come back to our next meal, you'll enjoy it. When I go back to my friends and say sorry, I say I mean it. When I spend time with my parents, I do only that, or the rest of my family. But it's a time thing, and I've understood that. When I was growing up, I always thought I was one of the musketeers. The fourth musketeer, actually, none of the three. And he only had a hairless pony and a sword. And he went off to fight battles in Paris all by himself. And it really appealed to me because of that sort of lonely journey that his fight was. Of course, I don't have a hairless pony. I don't own a car even. And the sword is I guess my chef knife
Your chef
or my pen. So that's me also, fighting a lonely fight in many ways. But I guess I'm also just me, a contradicting person to myself, the devil, the angel all the time. I enjoy many things: art, movies, sports. I will write a book one day, and that's always in the back of my head also. Part of this journey has been that. I guess some sort of Renaissance woman, to give it a word.
Nice.
Enjoyment of different things.
Nice.
Epicurean is maybe extreme, but sure, that's part of it.
Yeah.
This muse that presides over taste. So that's all me. All of those things are me, and many facets of me. The many lives I've lived show in my personality.
My last question, I promise you.
Okay.
What does attitude makeover mean to you?
Oh my goodness. This I didn't see coming at all. In a way, I followed your journey also. In a way. I know when you switched over to what you do now, and I was very admiring of you because I thought, wow, you have this incredible corporate life, doing so fantastically well at it, and bravo. Because secretly, I want everyone to do that. I want to say to everybody, take that plunge. Do it. Even if it's for a short time, just do it. You will go to some depths of yourself that you've never ever thought to. And that's worthy of taking the step. And so I was secretly, and I still am, applauding you from the background every day. Every day. I'm clapping for you and all the other men and women out there that take the plunge. Because regardless of the adversities, regardless of the problems, it is so worth it. Because finally when it comes to it and you're examining your life one day and you ask yourself, what did you do with it? You've got to be able to answer that question, that's all.
Yeah.
And I think everyone should do it. So bravo to you, really. I was so proud of you. But attitude makeover itself, I fought you tooth and nail and said, no, I'm not coming to this thing. And I'll be honest with you, this is my first ever real interview.
Yes.
There have been sound bites, I'm sure, and there have been journalists along the way who've just wanted a line or two. And usually they're questions sent to me by email, which I've answered. But this is really an interview. And you asked me why suddenly have I said yes. And I think I said to you in a long conversation that finally I do have something to say. And the same way I'm the 50th interview you've done, and you've also gained some experience in doing this. I think the last 7 years have given me, or the last lifetime, have given me something to say also. So thank you for giving people like us, you, me, and there's 49 others before me, who have had the same experience and who can share it. And I'm hoping that whoever's out there and who's listening to all of us talk about our very crazy roller coaster rides, that you'll all learn something.
Yeah.
Or not, doesn't matter. Maybe you listen, maybe you won't. But if you get even half an hour into this, maybe you've had some fun, and that itself is enough.
Yeah.
And for that, really, it's such a different platform. It is feature length, but so what?
Yeah.
There's enough people out there who want to hear our stories. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kanishka. This has been a delightful conversation. Right from the frog legs to the chicken pate to your mixers to your desserts. Oh God, I love every bit of what you do.
Thank you.
And who you are, and hopefully we'll get to have more conversations. I remember the third episode when I was trying to get you, I had done my research.
Yeah.
And when I was preparing for this research, I realized how much of a journey I've had.
Yeah.
To your point of, making these and not losing them, I realized, oh wow, how simple that research was, and look at how, how far you've come over here.
Yeah.
So I think to that again, thank you so much for being part of
my
this.
pleasure, absolutely. I've had a great time. And contrary to all my previous fears of being in this seat and in front of this mic and in front of the camera, I really had fun.
Yes, me too, totally.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can we hug?
Yes. Thank you.